Okay, so thank you very much for coming along. In my humble opinion, I don't think that any government has taken waste and recycling as seriously as they ought to have done for a very long time. The circular economy is not just about recycling, it is about delivering genuine sustainability for materials. And if you take all of the things into consideration with materials, the transport, the mining, and so on and so forth, is a massive part of the climate challenge that we face. So I'm really glad that you've come along, and I'm really glad that we've got such a fantastic panel. I will introduce people as they come to speak, because I think that's more sensible, and then you will have a handle on who they are when they start to speak. So the first person who is going to speak is Libby Peake. I know a lot of you will know her already. She's here from the Green Alliance, and she will talk to us about the basic environmental concepts involved.
Thanks very much, Andy, and it's great to see so many people here today. I suppose I wanted to start with reflecting on the sort of the subtitle, which is how to make reducing waste easy for all. And I think in terms of the public perception of the circular economy, it is all about recycling. And I think the biggest challenge for me is always to get people to think more broadly about what we want to see and the sort of transformative change that could be brought about and brings all sorts of benefits with it. So I tend to, when I'm describing the circular economy, this is probably teaching grandma to suck eggs, but I tend to think about the easiest way to get into it is to talk about the current economy and some of the problems with it. So the current economy is linear. You take materials out of the ground, you make things from them, you use them sometimes briefly, and then they go back into the ground or up into the air and they're completely wasted at that end. But waste is baked in throughout the system, and I think that's a more challenging message for people to get than to think about just waste at the end of the process. So I tend to think of the circular economy as working in contrast to that. So rather than having the linear one way, it's all about a series of circles, and the ones that you want to do last are on the outer side of this sort of concentric circles. It's recycling. You do want to do it, but that's the last thing that you want to do after you've reduced and reused. And in my conception of it, I tend to think of it as a bullseye with reducing material use, not just waste, but reducing material use throughout the economy as the thing that you're aiming for. And the reason that people need to aim for this, because they're concerned about climate, they're concerned about nature, those concerns remain high, but they're failing to see that the thing that links those two crises with the triple planetary crisis of pollution is resource use, which drives more than 90% of biodiversity loss globally and over 55% of emissions, the extraction and processing of resources. So I think the sort of reason we need to get people to think more broadly is vast and really, really important. And the way to do it is to talk about reduction. And I suppose as well to think about the massive benefits that can come to it. So we've been working with PwC on Green Alliance's Circular Economy Task Force, which SUEZ and RAP are both members of, to look at the economic benefits. And they've done some really conservative modelling to show that if the UK just moved a little bit towards what other countries are doing, the next comparator countries and the best in Europe countries, it would bring economic benefits of 0.85% to 1% of GDP, and productivity benefits that are quite similar to some of the AI and emerging technologies that the government is very much in favour of. And I know Adam's going to get into this more, but I think it's really important to remember as well that it is something that is a vote winner that people are quite concerned about, even if they've never heard the term circular economy. So we did some polling, which was really politically focused, because we wanted to understand if this was something that could unite the left and right flanks of Labour voters. And we found that actually it is, beyond our expectations. It's something that everyone is concerned about. So 83% of the population at large are concerned about throwaway culture and think it's far too big a thing. And 82% agree that there's a need to move to a society that uses material resources more efficiently. Amongst Labour voters, that is actually higher than the national average. Amongst the left-leaning flanks, so those who are considering voting for the Lib Dems or the Greens, it's about 90%. It is much, much higher. And even amongst those who are reform curious, it commands a significant majority. So it's over 70% across the board. They like the ideas of reducing material use, of having longer products, of all the benefits that it can bring. So I'll just leave it there.
Thanks, Libby. That's brilliant. We'll move straight on to Dr. Adam Reed.
Thank you, Sandy.
Sorry?
Thank you, Sandy.
Yeah. I was going to say something about you, Adam. So Adam is the Chief External Affairs and Sustainability Officer at SUEZ UK. And he's, well, I've got a bit of a blurb here, but I'll just say he was brilliant last year and he's going to be brilliant again this year. And I think you're going to say something about the Restart project as well.
I will later. Thank you for the invitation. It's good to be here. And I'm glad that we're sponsoring or co-sponsoring an event like this. I think it's really important that when we're here in Liverpool thinking about the future, that we remember that a clean circular economy is the heart of UK PLC for the foreseeable future. Why is a waste management company talking about circular economy? Surely I make all our money from treating stuff. Well, yes, but the future can't be about treating stuff, can it? We have to be more sustainable as a business, and therefore we're absolutely spending almost as much money on things like repair and reuse, and the Renew Hub in Greater Manchester is a good example of that, to drive material flows away from ultimate disposal. So don't think for 1 minute that waste management is all about end of pipe. We are a resource management business, and we want to work with our customers of all sorts to make sure that we manage your resources in the best possible way. So why am I here? Well, I'm here because we've been doing some research with WP Economics, so I'll give them a shout out, because we're quite interested in I guess, normalising the circular economy, because it's, as a topic, the first time SUEZ issued a report, and we do thought leadership reports on an annual basis, was 1995. We started talking about the circular economy. Now, I guess most people had no idea what it was. We've had reports published since 2005 where we talk about it frequently, and yet most of my customers still don't ask for it, and certainly my mum doesn't. And by the way, my mum is my benchmark, because if my mum doesn't get the concept of whatever it is I'm talking about as a professional resource manager, then there's little chance that Joe and Josephine, the average public, are going to get it right anytime soon. So when I speak to my mum, it's like, Mum, how's the circular economy going? Yeah, go away, Adam. Are you doing any repair? Oh, yeah, we do some repair. Okay. Are you taking stuff to the charity shop? Yeah, of course I am. Are you taking stuff to the tip? Yeah. Are you segregating it? Yeah. Have you got milk bottles being delivered? Yeah. Okay, so you're living the circular economy? No. It's just I'm doing stuff that's right. Okay, so the research that we're looking at is normalising, for my mum and others like her, the circular economy. And I think it's really important that we understand from day one that when you're trying to promote recycling, and most of us have lived that recycling journey on this top table, you talk about certain things. There's certain triggers. It's about the environment. Well, it's not, is it? Because only some of the public respond to the environment agenda. Some of them about it's looking after their kids, or some of them it's about just being green. But ultimately, some of it's about convenience. And when you start talking circular economy principles and you start thinking about repair and reuse or waste prevention or reduction, concepts that don't make a lot of sense unless you start consuming less, which is something you're not allowed to talk about with politicians because you can't do economic growth without consuming more. We'll come back to that. You start to realise that the language that promotes prevention or circularity is not the same language or communications channels that we might have used to promote recycling. So you've got to start educating again around different principles and different activities. So two very large working groups, focus groups, looking at this. And it was really interesting that type 1 are the ethical, the proactive, the engaged, the optimistic. They see the opportunities to do things differently. They want to be environmentally friendly. They even understand the concepts of DRS, rental and mending stuff. Great. So they are easy to reach. They're going to get on board if you can access them and give them services that make sense. Type 2, pragmatic, convenience-led, financially driven, a bit sceptical. They'll practice and participate if it's cheap, if it's quick, and if it's easy. And that's cheap, quick, and easier than what they're doing now. And that's the difficulty, because recycling is actually really easy and convenient and accessible. So if you want them to change their behaviour, you're asking them to do something that's very different. I think that's really important when you've got a minister who's going to sit down in a minute next to me, tasked with making the circular economy the norm. Because ultimately we're going to ask consumers, citizens, to do things differently and to think differently, and therefore potentially undo some of the behaviours that they've become so entrenched with over the last 20, 25 years as we've gone, recycling makes sense. So my challenge to everybody that works in a more progressive circular space is, how do we get the language right? What is the narrative we need to use? How do we make circular economy principles and services more accessible? And therefore, how do we drive the motivations and inspire people to do things differently? We know it's good news. We know it makes economic sense. We know it makes environmental sense, but that doesn't seem to be capturing all those people that are already doing circular activities. They just didn't know it. And do they need to know it? There's the question. But those that aren't, do they need to know that they aren't? Or is it just about making it easier for them to do the right thing? Thank you.
That's great, Adam. Do you want to just quickly...
I'll do that later.
You'll do that later. Okay, fair enough. Okay. Welcome to our minister, but I think it would be probably sensible if we move straight on to Cllr now. So Cllr Shrewsbury is director... Oh,
Okay. Oh, sorry.
I've got a nice loud voice anyway. People can hear me. So Cllr Shrewsbury is Director of Insights and Innovation at...
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
right, okay. I was using the mic, yes. Is Director of Insights and Innovation at WRAP. I should think most people in this room know what WRAP is. It does what it says on the tin, or indeed on the plastic packaging, or on the cardboard packaging, or whatever the packaging is. Supporting DEFRA, supporting councils, working on policy, and Cllr is in charge of policy. So give us your policy, Cllr.
Thanks. I don't think I'm in charge of policy. I think Mary may be in charge of policy, but we certainly support different DEFRA and the devolved nations on their recycling waste policy. It's one of our things. I suppose where I wanted to start was, we're doing really well on the energy transition, and I've been to lots of things over the last few days about net zero, decarbonising the grid, etc., etc. But we've got this other transition that we've got to tackle, which is the transition of the way that we do things, our economy, and how we deal with material and stuff. So you've heard from Libby, the emissions associated with the stuff and the products that we buy and use and sell is huge and is equal to the energy emissions. So if we're just going to focus on energy transition, that is great and we need to do that, but we also need to sort of stand up and start doing this thing called circularity and do it well. And we're starting to do it, but we're just probably not doing it quick enough. And as you said, Sandy, circularity is much, much more than just recycling. And at WRAP, we've got this concept that we call circular living, which is really leaning into what Adam was saying, putting people at the heart of circularity, trying to make it understandable to them. And our sort of theory of change is that, there is no one single silver bullet. So we look at the policy framework. Governments are great at giving incentives or perhaps sticks. They can set the policy landscape. Then there's partners, such as businesses, local authorities, the actors that can actually make some of the change happen, be innovative. And then people themselves. And, if we don't have all of those things aligned, we're not going to actually scale the transition at the speed in which we need to do it. So our kind of mission at WRAP is to embed circular living in every boardroom, in every home, so that it's on the agendas at local councils, in businesses. People are kind of doing it, as Adam said, without really realising that they're doing it. So, the recycling job is good. The lady was here before at the previous meeting. In Wales, we've stood next to with Welsh government and helped the Welsh councils become the second best recycling nation in the world, and we're working hard with DEFRA to help support that a reality and implementing simpler recycling. But as I say, we need to do more than just recycling, and the change needs to be fair and just. We need to think about how we're going to protect jobs and get people to do things differently in a way that they want to move. Nobody's suggesting that we all become vegans and wear hairy shirts and never buy anything new again. That's not a world where people want to aspire and move to. So not only is it, we really welcome the forthcoming circular economy strategy, but I think businesses can play a really important role in the types of goods and services that they offer to us. And they are changing, and they're starting to recognise the value in doing businesses differently. We run what's called the UK textiles pact within WRAP, and the aim of that is to try and get textile businesses, the people that sell us textiles. We work with about the businesses that represent about 65% of all the textiles that go onto the market. We're trying to get them to reduce the carbon emissions and the water problems associated with those products by 50% and 30% by 2030. And they're doing really well on an item per item basis. The carbon and the water is going down, but the consumption is absolutely outstripping any benefits that's happening. So we've kind of been talking to these companies, and what we want them to do is, instead of like knocking on the CFO door at Next and going, actually, we'd quite like you to sell less clothing, because of course they'll probably send us away and they wouldn't probably be a member of our pact going forward. But what we want them to do is embrace different circular business models so that they still have the turnover. So on the balance sheet, they're getting the money in. So rental models, different ways, resell in their stores. So we're working with those businesses to kind of try and set goals around having part of their turnover associated with circular economy. And you may be surprised, because we are a charity, but we do some investment at WRAP, and we are investing our very small but very precious charity reserves in circular businesses to try and help accelerate that. We find that we're a trusted voice, so when we bring some of our not very much money into a deal, it can actually help crowd in funding. So we've invested in the likes of Grey Parrot and Sorted Tech, which are really enabling technologies to ensure better recycling, for one, but then also companies that are offering circular business models, such as the like of Bike Club. So that's a leasing rental model. So as your child grows, you just get a different bike, you swap it in and out. Their biggest competitor is the grandparents. I'm just looking straight at Jane. Do not buy your grandparents. And then just to finish up, we've done some work with strategy consultants OC and C to highlight the opportunities that business can have and are potentially missing out of. So people can look that up. It's called Our Businesses Leaving Money on the Table. And really, new business models are creating growth. They've got higher growth potential in the circular businesses than in linear ones. So 3.1% per annum since 2020, and they're twice the revenue growth over the past 5 years of a sample of 40 companies compared to a sample of 47 linear companies. And it also really attracts investors, so that they can see that these companies aren't going to have their Kodak moment where Kodak did not believe we'd all be walking around with fantastic phones in our pockets and didn't change their business model. So we can see that these types of businesses offering people the convenience of the products and services that they just want to have are going to be the future. So we need to kind of get behind that, but we need to get the comms right with people as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. There are several seats. If the people on the edges want to move inwards, then the people who are standing in the doorway can come and sit down, because I'm going to move on to Councillor Tom Ross now, but I know that there are people who would like to hear the last two speakers. Thank you very much. And so Tom Ross is the leader of Trafford Council, and he's the Greater Manchester portfolio holder for Green City Region and Waste. He's been leader of Trafford Council since 2023, and he's been a councillor since 2008. And he also represents Trafford on several regional and national bodies, including Greater Manchester Combined Authority. And he is the GMCA portfolio holder for Green City Region and Waste. I think it's really important to hear from somebody who's actually dealing with stuff on the ground level for local authorities, because that is where a lot of the problems arise and need to be sorted. Thank you very much. Tom.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. So just to give you a bit of context around Greater Manchester, first of all, as you'll have heard, Greater Manchester Combined Authority, we've been around for over a decade now. We're probably more advanced in our devolution journey compared with other parts of the United Kingdom. 10 districts in Greater Manchester, each of the leaders hold a portfolio. GM is one of the UK's fastest growing economies with ambitions for future growth, which include 75,000 new homes, infrastructure and employment opportunity, with a significant portion of that being in Trafford, the area that I lead. Why do I say all that? Well, clearly we've heard already from Libby and others about that tension between growth and the circular economy, and it's a matter of, from a politician's point of view, is how do we work through that? How do we get that balance right? And one of the things that we do within Greater Manchester is look at how we look ahead to the challenges that we have in terms of the environment, in terms of nature, in terms of the amount of rubbish that builds up the offshoots from growth. And we look at what we do about it. And one of the things that we have done is created a 5-year environment plan. We had our first 5-year environment plan that came to an end at the end of last year. We have launched our second 5-year environment plan, and that came into force in April. And a really key pillar of that is promoting the circular economy. And there's different practical elements to what we're doing at the moment and what we plan to do in the future in Greater Manchester. Conscious that Adam is on the panel, so I don't want to steal too much from him because I'm sure he'll want to say a lot around the Renew Hub that we have in Greater Manchester, but it's the first of its kind in the country. When Greater Manchester was negotiating a contract with SUEZ, it was one of the things that we really wanted to see, an improvement in social value. The Renew Hub was one of the key elements of that. And what it does is look at opportunities around stopping things going to landfill, getting them back into the circular economy, but really importantly, looking at what skills can come from that, what future jobs can come from that, what low or no cost goods can come through that to support people across different communities. And we've heard some wonderful stories in the past as how what may feel like small things, someone getting a bicycle which enables them to go cycle to college or to work, someone getting affordable white goods, has had a huge impact on people's lives. But that's all part of the circular economy and what we wish to do. Some of the skills that people have had and got as a part of working through or volunteering with the Renew Hub has been brilliant to see over the years. And Adam and I were at a celebration event a couple of weeks ago along with Councillor Quinn, where we really focused on the amazing stuff that Renew Hub has done in Greater Manchester and how we'd love to see that replicated across more of the country. Other things that we're looking at are the work that we do with schools. So we know schools are a great source of, to instill that circular economy, the recycling, repair, reuse, composting, refill. And so we have a series of grant schemes within Greater Manchester, which we use to support school projects. A lot of those have helped reduce single-use plastics in schools. A lot of them have helped improve people's ability to repair things. And we want to do more of that within schools, but also build into the wider community and use our VCFSE partners as well. That is supported by behavioural insights. So we look at how people think and feel around the circular economy, around recycling, and how we best harness their perceptions and tailor grants and programmes that get the best out of the community groups and also support the circular economy. We're also looking ahead to what we can do in terms of the business community, how we support business. In November 2025, we are going to launch a phased introduction of a business reuse platform where we will enable the redistribution of surplus business assets across different parts of the business community in Greater Manchester. And what we also want to do as part of that is track the carbon savings of people using that scheme. We've also recently launched a GM Food Programme Board as well, realising the vast network that we have in terms of food production across the conurbation, whether it be private sector, whether it be from allotments, whether it be through other sources. We're looking at what we can do, mapping how we can reduce food waste and make sure we get food around the conurbation to where it's needed and minimising what is quite a significant impact on our waste. And finally, going back to the growth message, what are we doing differently around our economic growth and our ambitions for the future? Couple of examples from my own borough in Trafford. So we recently reopened Altrincham Leisure Centre, Move Altrincham. We could have knocked it down and started again with a brand new centre rather than have the 1970s build that was on its last legs. We chose not to do that, and we chose to do a significant refurbishment of that building instead. One of the reasons we did that was because we know the impact that that knocking down and starting again would have had on our net zero carbon, undermining our net zero carbon aims, but also the amount of rubbish and waste that would have created. A second example is town centre regeneration. We're doing a lot of that across Trafford, and one of the things we've done in Stretford, which is just in the north of the borough in recent years, is transform what was a mid-20th century shopping street, which became part of Stretford now, so Stretford Arndale, as many people may have heard of it, an Arndale centre. We've lifted the roof, we've refurbished those old shop fronts, and we're looking to put businesses back in there. Again, that reduces the amount of waste that is produced from construction and is better for the environment. So there's lots of practical things that we've explored from a Greater Manchester perspective. We know we need to do more because we have got a very ambitious target with our 5-year environment plan. The circular economy is a key element of that. So we'll continue to look and learn across different parts of the country, but we also know people can learn from what we're doing here as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tom. And yes, I mean, what you're saying about embedded carbon in buildings is absolutely crucial. I still think there are far too many buildings being knocked down and replaced unnecessarily. And this is a major contribution. So thank you very much. It is absolutely delightful for me to be able to introduce our last speaker. I'm so glad she's able to be with us. I first knew Mary when she was chair of the Environmental Audit Committee, and she was actually able to change the way that people saw waste in certain areas while we were in opposition. And she can do so much more now that she's in government. She is obviously the Under-Secretary of State at DEFRA, and I don't think I need to say anything else. Thank you, Mary.
It's Friends Reunited, isn't it? It's great to be here with you this morning. Yes, I've been reflecting on my long and winding road to this day. First of all, as a councillor in Islington, then as an MP in Wakefield, and then finally back home in my home city of Coventry East. And it's wonderful to see you here, Sandy, as part of the SERA family. So thank you all very much for being here. It's great to be Minister for Nature and the Circular Economy. So I do full spectrum from forests and beavers on the fun end of things, plus cold water swimming in Queenstock this morning, really cold water swimming. Yeah, anyone who wants to come and rub my hands later, please form an orderly queue. And then to the kind of bins, incineration, landfill, the grimy single-use vapes, all the fun stuff, circular, all the sexy stuff, says Adam, next to me. So yeah, it's a full spectrum portfolio. And let me be clear about the scale of the challenge that we're facing. We are cleaning up the Tories' mess in so many parts of this country, in terms of systems that are broken. But what we know is that our recycling rates flatlined pretty much over the last 15 years. We did not meet our goal of 50% to recycling by 2020, which was a goal set by the European Union. Almost half of all waste, 49% in 2022-23, was incinerated. Just 40% globally was recycled, and our recycling rates have flatlined. So that's what happens when you don't have new policy. So I believe in policy. So we've done quite a lot of policy in the last 14 months. But we've got a wider, a sort of economic-wide problem, which is what the many brilliant previous speakers have all been talking about, and they are all doing absolutely brilliant work on the ground, either in the policy space, in the environmental space, in the case of Adam, and just really keeping our feet to the fire in terms of innovations and ideas, because we throw away £22 billion of edible food every year in this country, £4.5 billion in usable clothes, £2.5 billion of furniture that could live again in other people's homes. So we really have to do this. Everyone's focused on their bins, and trust me, I'm totally focused on bins, but we actually have to do an economy-wide systems change. Our landfill sites cover an area almost the size of Greater London. So we don't have much land, and we've got a London-sized hole in the ground with all our crap in it. It's just not good enough. We burn 12 million tonnes of waste collected by councils every year, and some of that will be good stuff. Less than 60% of our waste electricals are collected for reuse or recycling, and 4 out of 5 of our plastic products are still made from virgin materials rather than recycled content. So this is not just an environmental failure, it's not just a carbon failure, it's billions of pounds of lost economic value. And we're all enthusiasts for the circular economy. I'm not sure that we've got the language right yet. Nobody knows what a circular economy is, but I think the materials economy, people get, the food the stuff they use, the clothes they wear. So what have we done about it? Well, we've got 3 legs on our stool of the collection and packaging reforms. So let me outline the 3 areas. First, simpler recycling collections. For workplaces with more than 10 people, which came into force in March this year, we've established clear, consistent rules for separating waste and recycling, and that means collecting food waste. And for households, starting next March, we're going to have everybody being able to recycle paper, card, plastic, glass, metals and food waste. So that's going to end this really confusing postcode lottery of recycling services, which sort of just drives confusion. Second, we're transferring some of the costs through packaging extended producer responsibility, PEPR, which shifts the costs of managing household packaging waste from us as taxpayers and local authorities to the businesses that use and supply the packaging. So it's back to the principle of polluter pays. So businesses are now incentivised to use simpler packaging, to design it, to make it more easily recyclable. And if they do that, they'll pay lower fees. And we're seeing innovation in packaging design following. We're seeing behaviour change, particularly amongst the large supermarket retailers. And the third leg in our stool is the deposit return scheme, which will launch in October 2027. Why so long, I hear you say? Because we have to set up a whole system to install reverse vending machines right the way across the country. So it's a massive sort of project. This DRSs are in operation in over 50 countries around the world. In Germany and Ireland, we're seeing return rates of over 90%. So that's going to take out the 55% of litter that is drinks, cans and bottles. That's going to remove litter overnight from our streets, which is just an incredible thing. And finally, our digital waste tracking system is going to be a real transformation in how we monitor resources and materials throughout their journey. We're going to digitise and standardise waste data across the UK. Everything that we've got at the moment is a paper-based system that is wide open to fraud and criminality. And we estimate that waste financial crime is costing this country. It's very hard to estimate because it's a crime, so we don't know. But we think around £1 billion a year, whether that's fraud in our packaging recovering notes system, whether it's criminals dumping, fly tipping. And often what you find is that the sort of local fly tip on your street, you sort of investigate it and pull the chain, and it's actually a much more serious organised crime group because they go where the money is easy, and this is easier than drugs and trafficking people. So why wouldn't they? We have to crack down on environmental crime. And for us as citizens and as politicians and local leaders, this is what makes people feel unsafe in their own areas. You know, someone's dumped a mattress, someone's dumped a sofa, someone's refitted a kitchen and just tipped it all out in the street. It's not on. Environmental crime takes many different forms. We've made, dog poo was acceptable when I was a kid growing up. That's just what dogs did. If you were lucky, they did it in the government. If you didn't, in the gutter, in the government. It's been a long paging. they did it in the gutter. But if you weren't, then you know, we all know. Well, we all know the consequences of dog poo, but somehow it's okay to just chuck stuff out of your house and leave it on the street for someone to pick it up. So transforming the kind of waste permitting system, cracking down on some of those systemic issues around tyres that are then exported to India illegally for pyrolysis. There's no such place as a way. There's only other countries that may or may not be able to deal with our waste. So there's an economic imperative for us to do more of the reprocessing here, keep the money in our economy, and to have those jobs and clean jobs and green jobs here in the UK. We think that those 3 reforms are going to unlock £10 billion of investment over the next 10 years. They're going to create 25,000 jobs in every region of the country. And this is a real opportunity for green growth, which is already growing twice as fast as the economy. This is a growth area for UK PLC and for companies like the one that Adam works for. So new processing facilities, new collection services, new remanufacturing plants, and reduced waste management costs, hopefully, for local authorities. So stable policy making driving growth. We haven't had a lot of stable policy making under the Conservatives, but cleaning up our streets and tackling the waste cowboys is absolutely central. I just want to finish by saying a few words about our circular economy strategy. We've been co-creating that with the best people in this system who've got decades of knowledge on it, and we hope to publish it this autumn, and we're looking at the sort of big economy-wide transition. So we're going to look at and create roadmaps for key sectors such as agri-food, where we have this year given out £13 million in food waste grants to tackle some of that edible food that goes to waste. And to get more of it into, local food banks and working with local communities to tackle food poverty, furniture poverty, clothing poverty, etc. We are working on chemicals and plastics. We're working on waste electricals. We're working on construction, absolutely massive, as Tom was saying about, what's the embodied carbon in our buildings. And if we just keep knocking it down and dynamiting it up and starting again, these are carbon intensive industries in an energy constrained world. Energy has basically trebled in price since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And so we've got, how can we make things cheaper? And that's by reducing the amount of energy that we're using in those bricks, in that cement. Textiles, as Adam was talking about, and transport. So some really exciting things. We've got a lot of waste. We're going to have car batteries. We're going to have a lot of tyres. So we think that circular economy policies have the potential to boost the UK economy by £18 billion a year every year. That is an absolutely huge economic opportunity for this country. And we have R&D innovation going on, and we're working with UKRI, Research and Innovation, to develop flagship circular economy research, something that simply was not on DEFRA's scientific agenda before we came in. And it's been something that I've been very insistent that we should look at. We know every pound invested in R&D generates up to £7 in economic benefits. But want to pay tribute to Greater Manchester in their sustainable consumption and production plan, focusing on resource efficiency, and West Midlands Combined Authority, where I am, has developed a circular economy route map with strategies for zero waste construction hubs and funding for those local circular economy projects. There's a lot of money flowing into green tech at the moment, but a lot of people, particularly in the textile space, are finding it really hard to sort of sustain what they're doing and to get to the next stage. And I think there's something, isn't there, about people will invest in stuff they can't see because they think digital and AI is somehow more real than people who are working with local communities, washing kids' uniforms and putting those clothes onto kids. I think there's something about the tangibility of this sector and the the potential that it represents, that speaks to our Labour values as Labour politicians, as people who want to lift everybody up, who want to give everybody a good life, and who don't want people to be stigmatised because they haven't got the right trainers, or they can't afford a coat to go to school, they can't afford a bike to go to work. So these are things which, tangible things, help us live a good life. And just to say, I'm responsible for greening government as well, and we've started in DEFRA with a refurbished first policy for our phones and a recycled first policy for all our offices. So all our office furniture is now second-hand, but second-hand doesn't have to be grubby and dirty. Second-hand can be sexy and gorgeous as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to take questions. They've got to be questions. If anyone starts talking for too long, I will shut you up. And also, I know about a third of the people in the room. I'm not going to use names because I think that's divisive. So I'm just going to say you. If I say lady at the back, then please forgive me, even if I know you, and even if you're wearing a red thing and you're clearly not a lady. So the person with the HIV.
This lady over here.
That's right. Yes.
Thank you very much. So my name is Paul Cook. I run a small organisation called Arise that's mobilising Christians to get involved with campaigning on all these kind of issues around environment, but also human rights and poverty. So I think circular economy as a concept is phenomenally useful. And the reason I say that is because on climate change and energy and net zero, we've found a way of sort of describing the problem that enables us to get our arms around it. But we know we can do everything that we need to do on those things, and we'll be in trouble anyway because of pollution and waste and land use change and water use and so on. And circular economy as a concept enables us to get our arms around the other environmental issues. So the question is, wouldn't it be great if the government, every time it talked about climate change, talked in the same breath about circular economy, whether that's the right words or the right terms, but we always talk about those two things together, give a lot more profile for the circular economy. Will the government do that?
I think we need to ask Adam that as well, because he clearly thinks that that's not a great way of doing it, but let's hear. Lady that I do know at the back, and who is a lady with the spectacles.
Thanks very much. Deborah Sachs from South Norfolk. Brilliant presentations, and it's absolutely amazing to see Mary Creagh in her correct position with that portfolio. So I just gives me a good feeling. I am just going to ask one question that I think we could perhaps change direction slightly, which is about DRS. Because it's going to be hugely expensive to install all those reverse vending machines. I mean, there's like talk about billions of pounds worth of infrastructure. So two questions really is, are you considering digital DRS, which will allow not using reverse vending machines, which take up quite a lot of space in retail spaces and can be quite expensive? And why is it that DRS is about collecting the stuff that we already do have quite good systems for, like cans and bottles? And why doesn't DRS cover sweet wrappers and chicken boxes and crisp packets, which are the difficult things to collect and have no value and are also contributors to litter on our streets?
Thanks, Deborah. And I'll take a third. Yes, the lady at the front here or near the front here.
Hold on one second. Thanks so much. I'm Emma Stone, and I work for a digital inclusion charity. And I'm curious to see whether or not panel members are aware of the government-backed IT Reuse for Good Charter. Digital is a massive enabler, but actually we know that a lot of people can't afford a device. And so we worked with Vodafone 3, we worked with Deloitte, Green Alliance were on an advisory board, but there's a lack of joining up around tackling the digital divide, the circular economy and reducing e-waste. There are only about 34 organisations that have signed up. DCIT is running a small pilot. DEFRA is not one of the departments involved in that pilot.
Thank you very much. Good question. Right, I'll start with Libby.
Thanks very much. I'll pick up that one to begin with. I am familiar with it. Obviously, Green Alliance is one of the 34 signatories, so we are aware of it. And I think that that is one instance where there are two obvious problems that can provide temporary solutions for each other. So at the moment, we have a system that is incredibly wasteful and is creating the second highest amount of electronic waste per person per year in the UK. And at the other end, we have a really big problem with digital exclusion and people not having the devices that they need to access the internet and live modern lives. And at the moment, those two things quite neatly could be married up and are increasingly being married up to treat each other. But I suppose the point that I keep thinking about when I think about that is that's true for now, and that's an obvious win that we should capitalize and take and run with on things like the circular economy strategy. But that shouldn't be our long-term vision, because our long-term vision should be that we aren't producing that much waste in the first place. We have systems where everyone has access to a reduced number but the right quality of items to live their modern lives, and also where we don't have people who are facing digital exclusion because of device poverty or anything like food poverty. So I think at the moment, it's absolutely right that we're using those two things to treat each other, but in the long run, the vision should be a different sort of transformed world. And I think that the circular economy can offer that and does offer that. And I'm really hoping that the circular economy strategy and the route maps are providing a way to get there. And I should say, I didn't say in my introduction that I am on the government circular economy task force, but everything I'm saying today is not government policy, has nothing to do with the task force. It's my personal view. And just quickly on the circular economy question and whether or not we should be speaking to people about it in the same breath as climate and nature, I think absolutely we should, but we shouldn't be using the terms circular economy. People don't understand that. It's a really tricky one because as a concept, it encapsulates so much, and there's no other term that I've been able to think of that does encapsulate so much. But they're all diverse little things that together contribute to a transformation of the economy. So the government, I know, it talks a lot about a throwaway society, and that's a thing that resonates with people that people understand. But it's about getting them to understand the sort of depths of what is being thrown away in the economy. And people do understand and respond to things like repair and reuse. And I think it's about separating that out and getting people to think about all of the things that they do like. And in terms of linking it to the climate crisis, absolutely, I think we do need to talk about material use and extraction. That is what's driving the climate crisis, but it's not talked about anywhere near enough. And I think there are wins to have from changing how we approach that.
Thanks, Libby. Tom, please don't feel that you have to answer all the questions, but any of the questions that you want to answer.
Bro, well, I'll go to Emma's question, because one of the things that I didn't mention when I was talking before was some of the local initiatives we've had. So, for example, Trafford Tech for All, which is where we work with partners, and we looked at a refurbishment of different IT kit for people, and that was brilliant because obviously it contributed towards the circular economy. But also it brought some tech to people that really needed it. And I always remember one occasion, the first occasion we had it, we decided to launch it at a community centre in one of the more deprived parts of the borough in Trafford. People were literally queuing around the block to get their hands on low or no cost IT and digital kit. It showed there's a clear need for that, and there's a lot more that we can continue to do working with partners to build that scheme and make sure that we get IT accessible for as many people as possible across the borough. So it is definitely a facet of the circular economy that apologies for not mentioning earlier in my opening remarks. What I would say as well in terms of the circular economy, mentioning it, for me it's quite an interesting one, because for circular economy it's stuff that a lot of us have been doing already for a long time, and it is getting that language right. And one of the good things about the circular economy is it's incredibly tangible. We all see the bottles, we see whatever we separate out into different waste bins. We kind of get that, and it is, as Libby has said, how we get that language right, harnessing like cultural phenomena such as the repair shop as well, getting the really kind of narrowing down and focusing on like the interest that generates, and it's like how do we use that as a vehicle to promote more of that kind of behaviour out there. So it is all about the language, and I think repair, renew, talking about how it can contribute to your the pound in your pocket as well. There's all different things that we can use to bring people with us. But I think a bit like nature, this is one area where I think there's a lot of confidence within the population that they're doing the right thing and they'd like to do more. So we need to try and facilitate that.
Thanks, Tom. Claire.
Yeah, perhaps I'll talk a little bit about the DRS system. So take that one on. So digital, I mean, we've done some work in Wales on digital DRS and looked at how that can work. And of course, the beauty in Wales is it's all segregated materials. So you're still maintaining the quality of the material. So one of the aims of, as well as litter, is to increase the quantity and the quality of the material that's collected, which, if we're honest, is all about PET bottles. You're not really inflicting anything on an aluminium can. So, I suppose the issue with having a digital DRS, if you've got a commingled, for anybody that doesn't know, that's where you put all your recyclables in one bin. You're not tackling that quality issue. So that's potentially one of the stumbling blocks. And I think, this is going to be another behaviour change that people have got to adapt to. I mean, at WRAP, we've been working for nearly 25 years to try and get people to recycle. We know how difficult that is. And we're, in a couple of years' time, we're going to have to actually ask them to stop recycling certain items, put them separate, take them back to a shop. That's going to be a big change. So I think going from, we've got to take some of these in steps and tackle these things. So that's why I would say the digital stuff isn't there. And I probably agree with you. I think tackling the easy materials, I mean, we've got to start somewhere, but it feels like an easy win, and we could be trying a bit harder. Fullness of time.
Sorry. I'll go quickly, Chair. Circular economy, net zero, language, I think they sit in the same, box of tricks. I think, but the language has to be specific and actionable and simple, because I'm going to bring it back to my mum. DRS, Claire's taken all my thunder. I'd go off the batteries. I'd go off the textiles maybe, but I wouldn't be going anywhere near the stuff that I already collect at home very, very efficiently, and my mum does diligently every week. And as for the IT Charter, spot on. And I'm going to plug UK Repair and Reuse Declaration. Anyone wants to sign this, I'll give it to Mary afterwards. There's a load of people in the reuse and repair space that SUEZ are working with, but these are mainly charities who are busy trying to, grow this space. So the more that we can do, the better, Mary.
Oh, apologies.
Can't share that, can I?
So digital exclusion, we saw during COVID how important that was, as a load of kids sat on one phone trying to do 3 lots of stuff, and school saying, oh, we can't do lessons online because not everyone's got a phone. It's like, literally, we've got about 100 million phones here. We've got 2 for every person. So just get them a phone. And that is eventually what happened. So I have, I think there are issues around DSIT and DEFRA and the sort of silo approach. I am aware of a digital reuse scheme. I don't know if it's this one though. So I am aware of there are digital reuse schemes involved, but if there's ways of amplifying that through our circular economy task force, I'd be very pleased to do it. And we also hoard, don't we? Hands up who's got a BlackBerry in their drawer at home. Hands up who's got a Nokia brick at home. Yeah, Leonie's got all of them. Hands up who's got an old iPhone. Who's got a broken iPhone? Yeah, no, look, it's okay. Come to mama. It's a safe space here. DRS, perfection is the enemy of the good. We had 7 years of perfect development of policy under the Tories, and literally nothing happened. You have to start somewhere. Nothing that we do is perfect, right? Most of it is their in-flight legislation with some tweaks. But actually, what you realise is life is short. Government's only, you have 5 years in government, 1 year till the reshuffle. The drum is beating and the clock is ticking. And so if you want to do perfect, that'll never happen. So you have to do real. You have to get it in, and then you have to ratchet it, because once it's in, it can never be undone. And I would just say, digital, government's not very good at digital IT stuff, just putting that out there. There's some things where it's great, some things where it isn't. So even though this is a DMO, imagine we're trying to get everyone to do behaviour change, we're trying to install reverse vending machines, and then we're trying to put a reverse barcode and a digital, that is a recipe for absolute confusion, because it's going to be confusing enough already as we make that change. So, and that's why That's why Wales hasn't done it, even in a much smaller country. It is about better material streams, which is why your paper and card will be in a bag so that the glass is no longer commingled with it, because that was one of the big problems, is broken glass. Why? I thought you were going to say, why isn't glass in the DRS? But that's it's a whole other story.
Thanks, Mary. We've got 5 minutes, so I'm going to ask people to have one-word questions and one answer. So nothing long. Bill.
Hang on.
Sorry, I'm a gentleman at the front, I should say.
And I'm also going to remind you, you will have found one of these on your seat. Join SERA. Then you can
Yes.
put things on like this. This room is packed. More people need to know.
Thanks, Bill from SERA. Obviously, Reid's been celebrating the kind of work to get 1.5 million homes with the slogan "Build, Baby, Build." But Tom, you talked very powerfully about the benefits of refurb. So, do we also need to celebrate refurb, baby, refurb?
Thank you. Lady behind.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about redesign, eco-design, because it seems to me
Question.
Oh, I can say one little thing, because it's right at the top of the waste hierarchy, but it just doesn't seem, whatever policies we've got, it doesn't seem to be causing a great deal of longer life products or the ability to repair a lot of
So
them.
longer life products. And gentleman right at the front here.
Thanks, Pani G from Association of Public Service Excellence. Just on food waste recycling and local authorities, of course, it should be in place next year, which is great. A lot of councils are on track. There are some that have asked for extensions to go beyond that for various reasons, some of them up to 2038. So if there are more and more exceptions, then they need the support in order to be able to bring them in. So how can we do that? Otherwise, in terms of simpler, it's not going to be consistent if we have a lot of councils that aren't.
Thank you very much, Mary. Do you want to pick one of those, whichever you want the most?
No, I'm going to do two.
Oh, good.
So, yeah. So first of all, eco-design. Have you got an Apple phone? Anyone got an Apple phone? Mm-hmm. The reason why, despite you dropping it, literally, why it only smashed on the 100th drop, which mine did, is because of EU eco-design and regulations, which basically said, you know, you have to, or it might have been US actually, that said it had to be a certain quality of toughness, because of course they get 50 quid every time you go and replace their screen. So it's like, why wouldn't you? Oh, sorry, it's broken. Oh, what a shame. You know, so actually Apple was forced to design a much sturdier phone, but we don't know about it because I only know that because I'm a geek. So, you know, lots of things happen that change things that you don't really notice, because it doesn't say I'm an eco-design product. It just says, oh, this is going to cost my producer less to do because it's made of simpler packaging and it's now made of paper instead of plastic. So if you think about tethered lids, that's an eco-design thing to stop the lids going into the Mersey and you know, being eaten by fish. That's a global sort of agreement by drinks producers to tether lids. Now, it's inconvenient when you're pouring your milk out and the lid's tethered, but it's still probably the right thing to do. So that's eco-design in practice. There's all sorts of other things around stuff that you can now collapse and the trays not being plastic but being cardboard. That's all the design shift that's happening to make things easier. We are introducing film collection, back to Deborah's point about films and sweet wrappers. We're introducing collection for them in 2027. But one of the reasons we're not doing it next year is we need to build the facilities to be able to deal with those products. It's no good collecting it and storing it in a big warehouse in Adam's shop. You know, we've got to have places for this stuff to go, and that though building those facilities takes time. There was a second one, I've forgotten what it is now. I've got lost on eco-design. Okay, leave it.
Adam.
Quickly then, I'll pick up food waste. We don't need everybody to go straight away because we're going to have a problem with infrastructure anyway. I'm not sure we've got enough bins, bag, boxes or vehicles for the entire UK to switch. But I do worry about long-term derogations. Yes, I think we have to be sensible. And on the redesign, it's already happening. I think EPR is driving some of that today. And as EPR widens to other material streams, you know, business will do what's right for business, and that will be to innovate, I think. So I'm more optimistic.
Great. Claire.
Yeah, so I think what we found in our research on businesses is that product design is being impacted on because businesses can see that they're going to get better customer retention. If it's repairable, they'll come back and they'll mend it. So it's like sticky customers. So I think businesses are moving that way, but it's got to be affordable. You know, we can all go out and buy a Miele or other posh washing machine that has a 20 or 25 year guarantee now, but that's not accessible to everybody. And what we've got to do is have these types of products accessible to all so that we can have a shift. So coming, but not quick enough.
Great. Tom?
Much as it would be appropriate to recycle the phrase build, baby, build for it to become refurb, baby, refurb, I think I'd much rather prefer something like refurb, refit, restore.
Brilliant.
I actually did do a LinkedIn post where I was trying to get something very similar going aimed at Steve Reed, because I think the point that we need to make now is that if you want to build 1.5 million homes, you will break the carbon budget if you do it as we've always done it, and if you're operating as we've always operating. Those two aren't compatible. But construction currently has the biggest impact, but it also has the biggest potential to change. A pretty shocking statistic is that for every one house built in this country, for every 6 houses built in this country, 1 house worth of materials is currently thrown away. It produces a lot of waste. It could change, but you need to get the incentives right. And I suppose I would like to end with a final plea towards Steve Reed, who's now moved on, obviously, to housing. And in his new role, he has the potential to bring in new forms of construction and to ensure that we're converting houses as part of that converting commercial buildings or industrial buildings as part of that 1.5 million homes target. He's got the potential to start driving and living his love of the circular economy that he had when he was Environment Secretary. So hopefully he'll carry that through, because that's a real opportunity for cross-governmental action.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. It's great to be able to ask questions of the Minister, of the industry, of the experts. We can only do this if we've got members. You have these on your chair. If you want to have this opportunity in the future, please do join us, join SERA. We need you all. Thank you very, very much. Can you show your appreciation for the panel?